Good day. Thank you for joining us today for today's webinar, Successfully Visualizing Healthcare Data with Tableau, 4 Proven Phases to Success. My name is Russell Hendrickson. I'm the CEO here at PDS. And joining me is Emily Goyne, one of the newest employees. Emily brings over 10 years of experience working for a major analytics healthcare vendor and over 15 years healthcare experience to PDS.
Thank you, Russell, and thank you all for joining us today. We're excited to share our latest visualizations in Tableau today. For over 20 years, PDS has delivered healthcare solutions for analytics, dashboarding and visualization, which is what brings us all here today, business intelligence, and data warehousing.
You know, when I talk about PDS and people ask, you know, what do we do here at PDS? I like to say we help people get answers. I used to say make it pretty, but the buzzword today is visualize, and that's what we're going to be talking about Tableau. And then, of course, distributing information so the right people have access to the right information. And so with that, you know, the question would be, why would we want to visualize?
Well, we've all heard that a picture is worth 1,000 words, but truly, when you have your data displayed correctly, it can help simplify the understanding of those complex data points. It can help clearly communicate performance and outliers for the folks that aren't meeting their goals or benchmarks. And when designed properly, good visualizations can help support change in your organization.
You know, I was recently working with one of our customers, and the CEO said, you know, when you lay out visually where the bottom 10% are, the data really speaks for itself. It's very clear that where the problems are. It's very clear that action needs to be taken. So let's go ahead and take a look at one of the visualizations that we built out with Tableau. And here what we're looking at is, you know, physician productivity. It's built out across departments. We have various drop downs or selectors. And what's unique about this dashboard is that we're blending work RVUs, but then some of the supporting factors that contribute to, you know, whether a physician is hitting or missing their goals. So we might have things like how quickly are the physician turning in their charges, or looking at their coding curves. In this case, we're using their 99214 as a measure for what percentage they should be against CMS or benchmark. We've got scheduling volume, because as you can see, there's a physician here, and without a lot of patients, it's very hard to make sure you're getting your performance. And then patient satisfaction, which obviously doesn't directly contribute to RVUs, at least immediately in some cases, but we want to make sure that physicians aren't rushing through their patients or not satisfying their patients. So Emily, if you would walk us through the functionality here.
That's right. So in Tableau, the dashboards are very interactive. So for example, if we filter on a specific department, you'll notice all of the different indicators on the page change. When we were taking a look at the data, we looked at GEI here and started to notice some interesting information. So we could see that there were certain providers that were falling at the bottom end of their work RVUs, in the bottom benchmarks. And then we could also see below that their 99214 coding percentages were low. So we can just select those providers, and the interactive graphs filter for us. From that, we can see a list of those 4 providers. We can see some of their other metrics, and we can see how their charge lag is performing. There's a couple that have some room for improvement, and we can also see where their patient satisfaction scores are, so you can really get right to the information and find those outliers quickly.
So one of the things that makes building out this dashboard unique is the fact that in order to be able to stratify, whether we're looking at coding curves or we're looking at patient satisfaction scores, the data has to be modeled in such a way. And one of the ways we do that with this data set is to create what we call tiers. So we take the benchmarks, we take the targets that we're measuring the physicians against, and then we can stratify them into tiers, which makes it very easy through the visualization to automatically have them create, filter, or select like you're seeing here. Let's dig down a little bit to one of the physicians that we mentioned here before, John Smith, and see what's going on in a visualization around his data.
Right, so this is a visualization that we would gear towards an actual physician themselves, so they would be able to log in and see their activity and see how they're performing. What we do with this kind of visualization is we trend their data over time so that they can see their performance over time and be able to see these are the months that we're doing well, these are the months that we're not doing as well. So in here, for this particular provider, we can see there were months that the provider's patient satisfaction was up. So those could be months that we could model against to see where we can improve for the months where he wasn't meeting his patient satisfaction. You can also see their RVUs trended out, their provider visits and 99214%, as well as their charge lag over time.
Excellent. So the same data set could be presented a lot of different ways, and this is one of the things that makes Tableau so powerful, is the fact that you can literally build or load a data set into Tableau. And then once you start building, you'll see all three of these visualizations are in a single project. And we even have the ability with some of the new features in Tableau to move and guide the user page to page to page. This is the same data set running across, where we're looking, at various trends, and we can roll data up annually.
That's right, and you can also add some pretty advanced visualizations here. You can see that we have spark lines brought in right next to the provider's information. So not only can you see your provider with their data points right in a row, we also can add that mini spark line so you can see where there's a trend and where there might be a drop-off in activity. It's really easy to call out those issues. We can also add in trending arrows up near the goals so that we can say, we have a great set of work RVUs this year, but we're trending down. So this is something we don't want to check into for our performance going to the future.
Excellent. So let's talk about, how might you go about building visualizations? I was working with an organization, just talking with them the other day, and one of the questions was, well, how do you go about actually designing, your visualizations and your dashboards? And here at PDS, if you're familiar with us, or if you're not, we've talked about this a lot. We have what we call a four-phased methodology that we recommend and is used to help guide our customers through building dashboards. The first piece, and is often very quickly overlooked, is to define your goals. Each dashboard needs to speak to a business problem, or it might, be communicative. It could be as simple as we want to communicate what's going on with some trend goals, and you'll see some of those coming up. But clearly, what are we trying to accomplish with the dashboard? Who is the audience? Are we going to communicate this to, just to leadership? Are we going to communicate it to the department's administrators? Does it have to be shared with somebody at the front desk who's looking at a physician's schedule? So what are we trying to accomplish? And then the second piece is, what are the drivers to those key measurements? If we're going to drive down denials and we don't understand the contributors to our denial rates, we may not be able to build a very successful dashboard because the user is going to be looking for more data. So what are the drivers? What are the KPIs? How might we want to, present data? The challenge, though, is sometimes what we want to do, we don't have data for, or we can't easily get the data. And that goes into phase two, understanding what data is available. So it's very important, obviously, to understand where the data comes from. But the next question is, can we get the right data? How do we need to transform the data? One of our very large customers, when they were designing dashboards, they created out just that. They started laying out what they wanted to do, and then they had alternative metrics, understanding that some of the data they wanted to see might not be readily available, so they were looking for other supporting metrics that they could continue to move forward with getting dashboards completed that communicated the business challenges. All right, and then as part of understanding data is get your hands on real data. Too often dashboards are built in a vacuum, and it's easy to sort of create data and then realize, well, you don't really have the data. So work with a sample of data, work with a department, work with a specific area, and start modeling that data to understand how much transformation is really needed just in terms of what data and where you're headed.
That's right, Russell. And once you have that initial set of data, you're going to want to run a pilot. We recommend that you create a sample set of dashboards. So put it out there, whether it's in Excel, whether it's in a visualization tool, but put together a sample set of dashboards with metrics on them. Take that back to your stakeholders and have them review those dashboards, those metrics, and make sure that the metrics that you have put in place are measuring what needs to be measured to help drive improvement and drive success. This is an iterative process, so it's going to take a little bit of time. There's going to be some back and forth. And then once you've landed on that set of dashboards and that set of metrics, then you'll want to set a pilot to roll that out to a limited set of users for some additional feedback.
Yeah, typically this is the area that I think is most often overlooked in organizations, is they pilot out or they build out a dashboard, say, hey, we're done, we completed. And typically we see with most customers 4 to 6, iterations of dashboards evolving. that the dashboards, what we thought we were measuring or how we thought they might communicate has to be tuned and modified and enhanced until they really get polished. While that's going on, obviously you can then be gearing up and prepare to optimize for production and start to roll out, either whether it's to roll out in a phased approach or roll out enterprise-wide. And obviously as part of that, then you may want to look at your ETL process, you want to look at your data staging, you may want to start to leverage, your enterprise data warehouse, where in your pilot you may have just tried to move very quickly using summary data through Excel as an example.
Great. So let's take a look at some visualization challenges that we're often presented with. Our first one will be around scheduling and appointment data. So we want to answer the questions, how do we effectively communicate how we're scheduling patients? And then how are we going to take that data and allow our end users to explore the data? So it's not just a static view, it's a way for them to get into the data and actually find their own departments. Then how do we highlight the performance gaps and correlate those with scheduling utilization? And then how do we present this information for physicians themselves so they can dig into how they can make their own self-correction? This first view here is going to be a scheduling summary, and this is going to include visits over time with trends and appointment lags. We're also looking at visit categories, percentages by visit type, your top scheduling providers, procedures versus visits versus other appointment categories, and then a histogram with appointment and visit categories. So on this, you'll see that the dashboard is very interactive. You can point and click and filter on any of the departments or providers or months to be able to start to take a look at the different scheduling metrics that we have available here.
Excellent. So let's go a little deeper because this is fairly basic. And let's look at some of what we call advanced scheduling metrics, where we start to correlate and blend things like third next available appointment, the physician's scheduling utilization, where we can look at, what is the physician's availability booked versus utilized. And so this visualization here, you can see we're pulling some of the very basic metrics like arrived and bumped and canceled. And then we have the ability, of course, to correlate, a number of different data marts. And so in doing that, for example, we could look here and we could highlight, let's say, those physicians in one department that have a very high third next available appointment. And in doing so, then we can start to look and see and ask the question, well, why might that physician who's got a high third next appointment of greater than, let's say, 15 or 20 days, yet clearly they have some access in their schedule? And so this is just one way where now we start to build visualizations that are a little different, a little more powerful, that communicate, multiple data points and some of the correlative to that.
That's great. And so then once we've identified some of those providers, we can take a deeper dive into a provider view and look at some more specific metrics. So this view here is geared directly towards a provider that they could have access to look at their own scheduling and look at their own metrics over time. So for example, I think it was Mike Allen in our demo data set here. He had an interesting view where we were looking at his utilization and found that he had some openings in his schedule. Well, when we look at his scheduling activity over time, we can see that his Monday and Tuesdays are fairly well booked, but Wednesday through Friday and are open, there's some availability there. So there's some room for us to improve and room to add in some additional visits here.
One of the other features that I really like about Tableau compared to some of the different tools that we work with is that, sort of native into it, you can point and click on any area of a dashboard. If you notice here, I'm clicking on the bottom of February, and you'll see all the data just changed, and we can see what utilization is by day of the week in February, for example. But going a little further, I can actually just come right over here and click on keep only on the bumped appointments. And we can now see what kind of trends the physician has for bumping appointments. And maybe they're bumping a lot of appointments. In this case, maybe we have a physician who's bumping a lot of appointments on Monday. Obviously this isn't real data, but you might be able to see trends or explore data in a fairly unique way, through the visualization. And the fact that almost every single data point is interactive, I think really helps end users.
That's great. So let's move on to another visualization challenge and take a look at some emergency department data, some hospital-based data. For this, we want to be able to visualize emergency department activity, and we want to see if we can find correlations between patient admission and patient acuity. We want to understand patients leaving before being seen or discharged from the emergency room, and we want to be able to present this information to administrators for analysis.
Yeah, this is an actual visualization that we worked with one of our customers to build out, and we were using data that was, if you will, unstaged. It wasn't available in the data warehouse. And this is an actual visualization that we implemented. Obviously, the data here, this is on a demo data set. But the challenging part was, how could we communicate, where we had patients that were leaving emergency rooms without being seen, what were the, acuity levels of patients that were being admitted, and so you can see here, very quickly I can highlight, let's see the patients at a higher acuity level and see where we're admitting more patients. Obviously our data set sample here is a little skewed because we're doing most of our volume in, in this central emergency department, but fully interactive point and click and drag and drop. We also, though, could see, admission rates, or we could look at just one particular emergency room and see, is there a trend or is there a spike with patients that weren't, being appropriately discharged, or even, were there potentially a physician or physicians that were admitting patients. So an actual example that we built out with real data, and this was done fairly quickly using the PDS four-phased approach.
That's great. Our next visualization challenge will be to take a look at some financial information. We want to take a look at our monthly financial trends. We also want to analyze our current open accounts receivable and our aged accounts receivable. And then we want to look at our performance against budget and against any targets that we might have been hitting to see where we might be missing, and then how we dig into and analyze where we can make improvements. This first visualization here is a fairly typical view showing financial trends over time for a rolling 12-month period, showing charges, payments, and total RVU and charges per RVU. What's nice about it is it does have the filtering capability, so you'll be able to grab a couple departments there and notice that when charges go up 1 month, we'll see or should see a spike in payments in the following months, just with the typical billing cycle. What's also nice about it is that you can filter down and you can get into specific providers, you can get into specific departments to be able to see where there might be a drop-off in activity and address issues early on. What's nice about these tools as well is that there are some more advanced statistical features that we can add to our charts to make them even more to add more value to them. So we can add P-scores and R values. We can also add medians and averages to our various charts as well.
Excellent. And a fairly, I would call fairly basic chart, but definitely a useful one. And I think most organizations probably are doing something like that in one of their visualization tools. So let's move up to a slightly more advanced visualization. This is our current AR, runs across the departments and the payers. But what jumps out at me about this visualization is a technique that we really like here at PDS, which is a sort of at a glance top right corner that you could build in some of these, the numeric counts and show the users at a glance kind of the key metrics right in the top right screen.
That's right, Russell. And, as someone who has built a fair amount of dashboards over the years, I will say that Tableau makes this little piece quite easy to do. It's surprising how something like that can be a very difficult thing to program into a web dashboard and can require a lot of little text boxes and things like that. But Tableau allows you to pull in a number of different data points into a table and give you that great view to start off with.
Yeah. Again, this sort of full interactive capability where we could filter on just a department and see, what percentage of AR is sitting out there, or we could filter on just the AR over 180 and right away see that, the bulk of it is in managed care and self-pay. and for some reason it's tied to or gastroenterology. So a lot of different ways to interact and work with the data. You're really point and click, drag and drop, which is what you want in your visualization. Okay. We have one more visualization in this little case study challenge, which goes us beyond then correlating, and we start to look at how are we comparing to external blended data like a budget or a target for our physicians in our departments.
That's right, Russell. So what we wanted to do here is really look at our performance month to date and year to date for charges and payments, and comparing that to a budgeted collection ratio, so we can see our budgeted collection rate compared to our actual collection rate. So that visual that you're hovering over there really shows us any of the folks that are falling below the line aren't meeting their budgeted collection rate. And what that tells us is there might be some room for improvement there, and we need to look at what might be going on with those particular providers. The little grid underneath can be filtered too, or sorted, so you can see immediately which of those providers aren't meeting their budget. And then we can take a look over on the left and see what might be going on with their payer mix. We might have budgeted for them to have much more commercial payments this year, but what's coming in is more managed care and Medicare, so their payments may have been dropping off. So it's just a quick way to be able to look at and really dig into where our providers are meeting or not meeting their budgeted information.
And it goes without saying here that you can obviously right-click, dig into the data, filter to see the data behind, even export or pull up the data if you want to move that into Excel. All that functionality sits within these visualizations. So just for a minute, I wanted to share some information. We here at PDS, we only work with healthcare organizations. Many of you who are familiar with us, you're aware that we're both a MicroStrategy business partner and an IBM Cognos business partner as well. We've shown similar visualizations with MicroStrategy, and I'm pleased to announce that effective January 1st, we'll be fully working around Tableau for using the visualization aspect of it, being able to train, teach, and help clients build out visualizations, and we hope to add more capabilities beyond that as we move forward into 2019. We have helped customers with other visualization tools. Some of the bigger ones that we see in healthcare is Microsoft's Power BI. Of course, SAP has a robust tool set, and Qlik. These are probably the 6 tools that we see 95% of the market using in place. So I just wanted to share that. Challenges. This is a big one. I sit in meetings just about every week and talking with prospective clients, and one of the biggest things I hear is, well, we bought something, we're trying to build something, we haven't been successful, help us. And the first thing I always say is, well, somebody went out and picked a tool, but there was no business goal. What business problem are we trying to solve? It's great to have a tool set, but if we don't know where to focus, so we go back to that phase 1, what are we trying to fix? And then the second piece that goes hand in hand is we bought a tool set, but we didn't allocate any resources, we didn't send them for training, and we don't have any experience in staging or modeling data or building visualization. So these are some of the common things that we hear with organizations and how we might be able to help them.
Some of the ways we've seen clients succeed are by following our 4-phase methodology, by first setting some clear goals and understanding that it's going to be a process that that's going to take some steps and builds upon those achievable steps, that we've set some realistic time frames, understanding that it does take some time to get to those correct metrics, and always making sure that you've defined what your return on investment is going to be, or those measurable goals that each of those visualizations is going to help get you to.
Excellent. For those who are PDS customers, and if you're not familiar with PDS, we'd love to talk with you or hear if there's something we might be able to do to assist you. Even if you don't think you need help today, we'd love to share with you some of the ways we help clients. But for our customers on the call, we do have a library of starter templates. We call it the PDS Dashboard Library. It has about 90 starter templates in it. The starter templates, most of them are built out in Excel. They're published out to PDF, but we use those. Most of the visualizations you've seen here and today in Tableau have been built around our starter templates because their focus is on the business value. How do we communicate the business challenges? And we have starter templates that run for hospitals and facility, all around physician productivity and compensation, patient access scheduling, general ledger, patient satisfaction data, just to name a few of them. The second piece is we also have some tools that are very useful in getting data transformed quickly without having to run everything through your enterprise data warehouse. So if you're in a need to build visualizations quickly, you might have physician compensation that you're publishing by hand and you'd love to be able to migrate that to Tableau, but you have some limited staging challenges. We do have a software tool for our clients. Many of them are familiar with PDS Dash. And of course, we have a tremendous amount of experience in modeling data and helping organizations get value quickly. And of course, ongoing training workshops and support as well as a team here with significant healthcare experience. Again, I mentioned most of this, but we have a lot of experience blending, staging data, designing dashboards, and helping organizations be successful with all kinds of analytics technology. So with that, now we'll invite it up for questions. There's two things I'd like to share. The first question is, yes, we will have the handouts. Will be sent out to you this afternoon or by tomorrow morning. If you haven't received them by tomorrow afternoon, please feel free to email us. If you'd like more information about this webinar, we hope to have this published out by the end of next week, and you can visit our website to get access to the webinar if you'd like to see it or see the visualizations in it or review it or share it with anybody. If you're a PDS customer and you have questions, please email support123, and we'll be happy to help you there. Or if you'd like to learn more, you can email us or call us at the information above. Okay. We do have a question that came in. How would you recommend the best way to compile data that comes from several different spreadsheets in order to prepare for Tableau visualization? The question there is, there's really a lot of different areas. Building visualizations, right? Often one of the challenges is modeling the different data sources. Different spreadsheets can be joined. Tableau has some of that capability. As I mentioned, we here at PDS do have a tool that's helped accelerate that. If you'd like to learn more, we'd be happy to talk to you about it. It really depends on the data and the staging, to the level. We have another question here related to that, Emily. How long did it take to build out the scheduling utilization dashboard?
Let's see, so the scheduling utilization dashboard, because we already had data modeled to start with and staged appropriately, and we had a plan, so we had already kind of mapped out what we wanted the dashboard to look like. It probably took me about 4 hours to put that together.
Wow. Yeah. So again, want to stress that we had data staged and not fully, reviewed, piloted, et cetera, with our customers. But you can do things fairly quickly if you can get the data at the level. I have a question from a PDS customer. Can you discuss how Tableau visualizations are shared with consumers? For those PDS customers, we'll have more details about our Tableau services and what we're going to be doing. That program will officially roll out January 1st, but we should have more details coming by mid-December. But definitely by January 1st, we'll have more information on that. One of our goals is to build out a visualization library where customers that are part of that service will be able to get and actually interact with the visualization, some of the visualizations you saw here. And so what we're calling our standard visualizations as starter points, similar to our static dashboard library. Okay. And then I have another question. Could you go back and show the appointment dashboard? We're going to publish the video in the interest of tying up time. If any customers would like to learn more about this or any of the other visualizations, please feel free to reach out to us. But we will have the video. We hope to have that available and online by the end of next week at the very latest, and we'll send you details on that. I have one more question here. How much of your dashboard is calculated in the dashboard versus staged? Emily, do you want to talk to that since you worked and polished most of the dashboards you're going to see here? Is there anything you could guide around that one?
Yeah, so I would say that it would probably be about 80% staged, and then there's definitely some additional calculations you can do within Tableau. So Tableau itself is a very flexible tool. So if you've brought in the basic columns, for example, charges, payments, and adjustments, and you hadn't necessarily calculated out your collection ratio, you can calculate that within Tableau. So it doesn't have to get to all of those different levels of calculation within your data set. There's additional work you can do within Tableau to visualize it, and then also to be able to actually analyze the data a bit more.
Excellent, thank you. All right, I don't see any more questions coming in here at this time, but please feel free to reach out to us. Our contact information is on the screen. If you're a PDS customer, or if you'd like to learn more about PDS, we'd love to hear from you. We'll have much more information coming out about our various programs as we are very excited to be adding Tableau to our suite of supported tools as we head into 2019. So with that, thank you all for attending, and please feel free to reach out to us if you want more information. Hope you found this useful. Please do take a minute to fill out the survey that you should receive at the conclusion of the webinar, and look for the materials from today's webinar in your email as well. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you. Bye-bye.